All right, good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Cody Gingerich. I am here on a Technique Tuesday. So we're going to talk through a little bit of techniques today. I am one of the lead faculty for the Extremity Management Division. And what I want to come in on here today and talk about is a thing that when I first started taking ice courses, Jeff Moore said, and he said, your hands should be iron fists and velvet gloves. And ever since then, I have taken that and kind of ran with it and made it my mission to have as soft of hands as possible while also being at firm and getting the job done that we need to. Specifically, what I want to talk today about is with joint mobilizations and joint manipulations. And after having traveled the country for the last 4 or 5 years, seeing a ton of clinicians, one of the things that we see most commonly that can be most easily and effectively changed with most people's hands and creating more comfort for their patient is going to be more broad contact across the board and having the ability to create more overall surface area of touch with your hands while still directing force where you want it to go. And so that a lot of times comes through body positioning and body drops as opposed to actually using your hands to deliver force. The force should really be coming through your body, and your hands are just the output of that. And so there's a couple different techniques that I want to talk about and just show like what we see as far as faults most commonly and very easy ways to correct and tweak those. So when you do hands-on manual therapy, again, specifically joint mobilizations or joint manipulations, some of the things that we see with that. So a couple of the techniques that we show in extremities, and I'll show a few things as far as joint manipulations go as well. But we're going to start with a few of extremity mobilizations. I have Dakota here with us, and we're going to go through some different techniques on our table here. I'll move the camera so we can hopefully see as good as possible. But the first one that we're going to go through is a hand behind the back posterior capsule shoulder mobilization. So we showed this in our extremity management division in that live course. And what we're working here is going to be that combined motion of internal rotation and extension here. Okay. And so how we set that up is we have the patient laying on their back and we have them take their hand behind their back until we get a bit of the anterior shoulder pop there. Now, when we're talking about our hands, what we see happen most of the time is that anterior part of the shoulder, the acromion there, is ultimately that's where the force gets delivered, is through that front of the shoulder. But most people end up pushing straight through their palm here. And what the fix for this, and that ends up becoming really bitey on the anterior part of the shoulder there. The fix for this is, again, we want to spread out that contact as much as we can through the rest of our hand. So if you make a fist or a scoop like this, like if you were trying to hold as much water in your hand as possible, that's really the positioning that you want. And when we go and end up placing our hand there, the force gets delivered across all of this, and you are actually not touching the anterior part of the shoulder at all. So what that looks like in real time here, again, I'll try to manipulate the camera to make sure we can see, but the difference, again, this scoop here, and when we come onto that anterior part of the shoulder, I then drop my body and still deliver that overall force through the shoulder without this, right? That there, when people end up either opening that palm up and pushing from here, one that gets very army and handy, but if we scoop here, we are directing all of that force, and then it is a body drop. And so that then, that joint mobilization in the back is where that is felt, and we are not going to get as much discomfort on the front side of the shoulder there. Couple other techniques that I want to show and have you appreciate where we can have more overall broad contact. One of them is going to be when we are just assessing our accessory motion inferiorly for the shoulder or posteriorly, either way, in this mobilization here. Again, we want to drive forward this way, but if we have our hand turns where our web space is the only thing contacting that shoulder here, that can be very bitey when you're only using this small amount of surface area of your hand. If I rotate my hand to be here and have soft fingers, relaxed fingers, the more we spread out that overall surface area that we're touching, the more comfortable it is for the patient as far as you putting your hands on them, but you will be able to assess and feel and mobilize that joint significantly easier because you can deliver more force more comfortably. And that's where we get those firm iron fists, right, in velvet gloves, meaning you can deliver significantly greater force with more patient or more comfort for the patient. So again, what that's going to look like, see if I can set that up here. Instead of this, and I have a lot of space under my palm, it is this, but the actual force is still going through that specific point here, but there's a ton more broad contact through the hand. Okay. Last one that I want to go through is I'm going to have Dakota flip onto her stomach. Another shoulder mobilization that we do here. The same concept is going to apply. So this is our other combined motion for our shoulders. So now we're thinking flexion, external rotation. Patient's going to set up like this. And our mobilization that we're trying to do is here. Our hand placement is like this. If we are going through that and I have only this contacting that patient, that is going to get the mobilization done. But if I allow my hands to be a touch more relaxed, the force can still go through exactly where I want to, but now my body is sinking there and I have way more overall surface area touching that patient. My hands are relaxed around her shoulder. My thumbs are up and over, and my web space is getting that most force done, but I'm not here, keeping everything stiff. My fingers are stiff here, my thumbs are stiff, and that's going to ultimately feel pokey to that patient. Whereas if we allow our fingers to come around that patient, relax that, lock our elbows in, and we drop from our body, there is significantly more force that can be delivered with a lot less effort and a lot less discomfort from the patient. When we're truly going into joint mobilizations, we are wanting to change tissue structure within that joint, meaning a good amount of force has to be placed in order to actually make changes. But if your hands are the thing that are limiting your patient's ability to tolerate a little bit more force, then that's not going to get you the results that you ultimately desire. If we flip this into a bit of a spine talk, and we're talking about like cervical manipulations, we can have the same conversation. So flip onto your back for me. The difference comes from when we have a soft overall hand placement on their head, where we have more broad contact, but the actual force can still be pretty tight. But the more that we let our hands and our fingers relax around that patient, the more that they are going to be willing to relax and let you deliver more overall force in the specific spot because you have more surface area touching that patient. Ultimately, it comes down to you can't be weird about touching your patient more. right? We have to have as much overall contact as possible. That is where really this ends up getting. And you can't be weird about saying like that patient wants to feel a soft touch. If you're trying to get your hands in super specific spots and pushing and poking, it's going to always feel uncomfortable. You can still deliver force through very specific ways, but allow the rest of your hand to really wrap and contour around whatever body part that you're using so that they feel a soft overall hands, but firmness in where you need to place it. Okay? So use that as you're going through, you're practicing, you're doing your manual therapy, you're doing your manual techniques with your patients. The one thing that you can rely on is if you have to tell a patient or a client more than one time to relax. If you're saying like, hey, I need you to relax, more often than not, that ends up becoming a you problem. Your hands need to relax, because if your hands are not relaxed, that patient is not going to relax. It is acceptable to say, hey, go ahead and relax for me. That is totally fine. If that has to be a repeated request, more times than not, that means that you can say, hey, how can I adjust my hands so that that patient feels like I have them? And I would say 9 out of 10 times, that is going to be allowing your fingers, your fingertips to relax around that patient. We almost never use any of our fingers for actual mobilization or manipulation or anything like that. Fingertips don't need to do anything. So if they can relax and cover more surface area with your patient, your mobilizations and manipulations are going to go significantly better. That's all I got for you today. Use that while you're practicing manual therapy with your clients. A couple things. We've got 2 courses coming up, January 11th and 12th for Extremity. So if you can find us in Gretna, Louisiana on January 11th or 12th, or in Bear, Delaware with Lindsay on January 11th or 12th. Same weekend. We got a few more spots filled. So find us out on the road. Hope everyone has a great Christmas and New Year's week, and I'll see you next time.